Alright, is this shit working? Looks like it's working. Okay. Um, the Tennessee Titans just lost a football game, unfortunately, 15 to 16 in week 1 to the New Orleans Saints. And there's plenty of good things to talk about, but there is one glaring negative that needs to be discussed, and that is Ryan Tannehill. There is no sugarcoating it. He had probably the worst game he's ever had as a Titan, and it's not just the interceptions, because you can look at the interceptions. One of them, you can argue maybe DeAndre Hopkins ran the wrong route. It sure looked like Tannehill expected him to run a comeback. That was either the second or the third interception. And then the other one that was either the second or the third interception, it was a terrible read because he had Chigo Okonkwo open underneath in the same line as Chris Moore. I don't know how we didn't see him, but there was a no call defensive pass interference on that interception, so maybe he gets a little bit of slack there. But then there was the interception and the other interception in double coverage that is just inexcusable. I don't know why he threw that ball. And then there was at least 3 times in this game where a defensive back was this close to getting a pick just from closing out because his arm does not look like how it's looked the last 4 years. His arm looks shot. His arm looks like he looks like how Mariota was looking back in before he got benched for Ryan Tannehill in 2019, where every throw was a duck. That's what Ryan Tannehill looked like today. He had no velocity whatsoever on these short passes, and this is a fast secondary. Alontae Taylor ran like a 4.37 or whatever. Like this is not these are not scrubs out here. All 5 of these starters, well, like 4, but the slot starters. Well, all 5 of these guys, Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu, Paulson Adebo, Marshawn Lattimore, Alontae. These are dogs. These are not just regular run-of-the-mill guys. This is an elite secondary. There's no question about it. But I mean, every single pass just had no velocity whatsoever, and these DBs were able to close out and get their hands on it. And there were some plays where you saw NWI playing DB almost, getting a hand in there to make sure that he didn't get the interception, and that's we haven't seen that from Tannehill. I don't know if his arm strength is just cooked or if he simply isn't confident like he usually is, but he did not look right out there. His mind didn't look right. Nothing looked right. He's still creating his own pressure, which has always been a problem for him. The first sack of the game for New Orleans, he pretty much walked into it. He was fine where he was. Maybe he could have stepped up, but he stepped back, which is where the defender was, and he got sacked because he stepped back into the pressure. And I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what his plan was because he had nothing in front of him. He could have stepped up if he wanted to. If he thought he was feeling pressure somewhere, he could have just stepped up in the pocket. I don't know why he didn't. But but like I said, there was several turnover worthy plays that weren't turnovers from Tannehill in this game, and I'm not gonna blame this loss on Tim Kelly because I think he did eventually end up calling one hell of a game late in the game because of those, like the pass Tannehill missed to Chig Okonkwo. I would argue is worse than most of the interceptions he threw because Chig was screaming open. He would have walked into the end zone. I mean, Demario Davis is an amazing linebacker, but he's like 33, 34. He's not keeping up with Chig. He still has some speed, but he's not keeping up with Chig. If Chig catches that ball, if Ryan Tannehill throws it, hits him in stride, he's walking into the end zone. And then there's the pass to Tyjae Spears where Spears is easily getting 50, 60 yards if Tannehill just hits it on target. But, even if Spears had managed to bring that ball in, his ass landed out of bounds because of how off the throw was. So I don't like he was screaming open. There was no reason to like that throw didn't have to be perfect. You could have placed it more inside just to make sure that Spears would have had a chance at it, but he couldn't have been more open. There was nobody anywhere near him, and he threw it to the left. He threw it out of bounds. I don't know what he was thinking, but I mean, all game long he didn't look right at all, and I don't know why Tim Kelly didn't start leaning on the run game more. I mean, Tyjae Spears had a really nice run in the third quarter. Derrick Henry had over 100 yards from scrimmage in the first half, and he practically didn't use him at all. In the second half, it's starting to look like Matt LaFleur in 2018, and for the most part, Tim Kelly, I thought, called a pretty good game, but I don't understand the process of of not involving Derrick Henry much in the second half because he was playing his ass off in the first half. Derrick Henry looked great. He had He was averaging 5 yards a carry. He had over 60 receiving yards. I don't, or at least close to it. I don't know why you don't lean on him there in the second half because he played his ass off in the first. He was the reason we got to the red zone twice. I don't know why you don't give him the ball. This is the guy the offense has run through the last several years, and to his credit, he threw the ball a lot, way more than Arthur Smith or Todd Downing ever did, and I loved it. But do we need to go empty set that much? Can we not have some extra, somebody come out in the backfield just to give Tannehill a check down? Because I mean, the coverage New Orleans is playing all game long. They were playing just sticky man coverage, and they were beating their man every time. I mean, a lot of, especially in the first half, Tennessee's receivers really didn't get open much. But I don't know. If I sound a little weird, it's because I'm buzzing a little bit. I have work tomorrow, but I'm buzzing just a tad bit because it was a tough loss. So I just drank a bourbon and Coke a little bit ago. But I mean, I feel okay. But just a really weird game offensively. Tannehill had arguably his worst game as a Titan yet. And then we just didn't run the ball for some reason. The game was close. It's not like we were in a passing situation in the second half. It was tied 9-9 for like the longest time. I don't know why you don't just run the ball when you've got Derrick Henry in the backfield, and he looks like Derrick Henry. He doesn't look slowed down at all. He doesn't look washed by any means. He was still breaking tackles. He had a vintage stiff arm, his patented move. He hit it the same way he looked like Derrick Henry. He doesn't look any worse for wear than he did last year. I don't know what the plan was in the second half, but if Tannehill's struggling, why not give the ball to Derrick Henry or Tyjae Spears? I don't get it. But I mean, but to his credit, to Tim Kelly's credit, he called some good plays there in the fourth quarter. Tannehill just missed the guys. He missed Chig, he missed Spears. I mean, if he hits both of those throws, that's 80 yards and a touchdown. And if he decides to throw to Chig instead of Chris Moore into double coverage when Chig was screaming open on that interception, that's another 40-ish yards and possibly even a touchdown on that play. If not, it's first and it's first and goal more than likely, or it's first and 10 at the 11 or 12. But he just it's such a terrible game from Ryan Tannehill, and it's so uncharacteristic of him because Tannehill's brand since being in Tennessee has always been efficient, clean football. He's never been one to make the stupid errors. He's always at least gone through his progressions and made the right read for the most part. And he just didn't look like himself at all. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. He left over 100 yards and a touchdown on the field in just three throws. He left that much production on the field because he didn't see Chig screaming open on the interception. He missed Chig, who was becoming more open by the second when he overthrew him, and he missed Spears, who did not have a defender within 10 yards of him running down the sideline. That would have been a huge gain in a critical moment. And then, now I haven't even mentioned, I don't think, the officiating yet in this game. It's because I believe Tennessee had plenty of opportunities to get themselves back into this game. But it's certainly worth talking about. Now, there was one makeup call in this game because, again, the interception where Tannehill didn't see Chig, he threw to Chris Moore in double coverage. There's clear and obvious defensive pass interference that just wasn't called. But then later in the game, Elijah Molden also got away with one downfield that would have given New Orleans a first and goal. So those cancel out. But there's still, I mean, the opening play of the game, Amani Hooker looked like, even on the live, for me at least, that he was in bounds. But, of course, the ref said no. Mike Vrabel was forced to use a challenge on the first play of the game and won it. To his credit, I mean, they won the challenge and it was awesome. We got a field goal out of it at least. But then he used another challenge and lost it on the Kevin Byard fumble recovery for a touchdown, which was which the refs, I don't understand. How many more times does this have to happen before the refs stop blowing plays dead early? Because they should never be, if you see a defender with the ball in his hands running, you should never blow the play dead. You should always let it play out because usually the replay is pretty clear and obvious that whether or not there was a fumble and was recovered by the defense or not. So you lose nothing by letting the defender run it as far as he can and let the play out and just see what happens. But for some reason, they blew the play dead, And then not only that, they doubled down and didn't give Tennessee the football after the challenge because they ruled that it wasn't a fumble. Now, I'm going to bring this up until there's a reason not to because the NFL can't decide what precedent it wants to set. But that play looked exactly like the Josh Dobbs fumble against Jacksonville in Week 18 last year, which was ruled a fumble. So if Josh Dobbs fumbled the ball, you can't tell me Derek Carr didn't fumble the ball. Because yes, the ball went forward, but the ball went forward because his arm was going forward after he had lost control of it, and his arm just pushed the ball forward. But that's not a pass. The same way Josh Dobbs' throw wasn't a pass, it was a fumble. So how can one be one way and the other be called a different way? I understand it's two different officiating crews, but if there's a precedent that's been set for this exact kind of thing, should you not then follow the precedent that's been set? Because then you're just going to see inconsistency every single time that this play happens. Because it's going to happen again. It's going to happen to somebody. And we're going to see the same thing. The officiating crew's going to have to make up their mind as to whether this was, whether this was a fumble or a pass. And if it looks exactly the same, should it not be called exactly the same? That was a 10-point swing because not only did they not give us the fumble recovery, they didn't give Kevin Byard the touchdown, but New Orleans got a field goal out of this because that was on a third down. So New Orleans kicked the field goal after this. So what should have been a touchdown for Tennessee became a field goal for New Orleans. And remember, New Orleans won this game by 1 point. Now again, that's not the reason New Orleans won this game. Tennessee had plenty of opportunities to take control in the second half and put this game away, and they didn't because Ryan Tannehill played like boiled ass. And there's no getting around that. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. It just is what it is. But this is definitely one of the most frustrating losses I've seen in a long time because really Tennessee won the battle at the line of scrimmage. Tennessee had 4 sacks in the first half. Now, New Orleans O-line played much better in the second half, but Tennessee's offensive line played decently well throughout the game. Maybe not as well in the second half. There was some more pressure. The run blocking wasn't quite as good, but I think overall Tennessee at least had a slight edge in the trenches, and usually games are won in the trenches. But if you remember, the last time Tennessee won in the trenches and still lost the game was also a game in which Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. It was against Cincinnati in the divisional round 2 years ago. What happened in this game? Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. It's not rocket science. If you turn the ball over, it doesn't matter if you win in the trenches, especially when the other team wins on the outside. New Orleans won on the outside on offense, and they won on the outside on defense. Their secondary played sticky coverage throughout the entire game, didn't really leave many openings outside of 2 plays that Ryan Tannehill missed on completely, and another play where he just didn't see Chig screaming open. And then on offense, Chris Olave, nobody could cover him. He was open every play. He had like 8 catches for 112 yards or something. He might have even had more. I don't know if he had a catch after that stat line popped up on the screen, but I mean, just uncoverable. And Michael Thomas on that first drive was uncoverable. He didn't do much the rest of the game, probably because we keyed in on him, and that's why Chris Olave was open. I haven't watched the All 22, obviously, because the game just ended, but if I had to wager, we probably keyed in on Michael Thomas, and that's why Olave was open every play, and that's why he had over 100 yards today. We couldn't cover Chris Olave. We had a hard time covering Rashid Shaheed earlier or later in the game, and yeah, I mean the defensive line played their ass off. I think it's safe to say that Grand Ole Stoppery is back. The defensive line is healthy. They're deeper than they even were 2 years ago when we were the 1 seed. They've got on the outside they've got Landry and Autry and Weaver and Gibson and Murphy. Murphy was inactive today, but and on the inside, of course, you still got Simmons. Autry plays both outside and inside, and then you've got Tier Tart. Cal Pecco played a healthy amount today, and PV was inactive, but there's a lot of depth on this defensive line and at edge rusher, and there's a lot of guys here who can make plays, and the way they rotate them, they can keep them fresh all year, and I think in general we're going to see a very good pass rush this year so long as the health is good. But yeah, so in general, in the trenches, Tennessee looks improved this year. They're healthier than they were last year. they look better on offensive line than they did last year. The offensive line was really whooping ass in the first half. The run blocking was insane, and the blocking on those screens was awesome, especially that Derrick Henry 46 yarder. And I mean, the secondary wasn't bad outside of a couple of plays. One of them was just late in the game that it pretty much that Rashid Shaheed catch pretty much just iced the game. And then, but beyond that, the secondary played relatively well. Monty Hooker had a nice bait interception on Derek Carr, which was his second turnover of the game. He's the one that recovered the fumble on the opening play. So Amani Hooker's back, and unfortunately he's in concussion protocol, which sucks because he's very important to this defense. It's very important that we have two healthy safeties at all times because Byard and Hooker rotate responsibilities all the time, which is great. It keeps the offense guessing, and that's why you can see plays like that where Amani Hooker, kind of baits it, plays a little more shallow, gets Derek Carr to throw it and bite on what Amani's doing, and then he gets to just go up and grab the ball. And yeah, that those kind of things happen because we have two very good safeties. So hopefully he gets cleared sooner rather than later. Hopefully he doesn't miss more than a game if he's going to miss any time at all. I mean, hopefully he's just okay in general. Hopefully nothing's wrong. But you hate to see it. Christian Fulton had yet another hamstring injury, which, to the surprise of absolutely no one, I mean that's been his mo the last. I mean, since he's been drafted, it's that hamstring has been whooping his ass the last 3 years, and so far, I mean it got him today. He was back on the field, but then he was the one in coverage on that Shaheed catch to end the game, and he just kind of tripped over nothing. I mean, there was nothing to bite on. There was no double move. It was just a straight up go route for Shaheed, and Fulton just tripped at the beginning of the route. Shaheed was screaming open. Derek Carr threw it inbounds. And I mean, to Carr's credit as well, he got the ball out very quickly in this game because, especially in the first half, the pressure that Tennessee was getting was just insane. I mean, we still had 4 sacks in the first half, but there could have easily been more. But Carr is very decisive. He's very good at getting the ball out quickly. And really, his only bad play of the game was the aforementioned interception to Amani Hooker. So beyond that, I mean, good job, Derek Carr. First game with a new team, he looked good. But I mean, I'm not gonna say bench Tannehill. I'll give him at least another week, but I mean, he's not a good fit in Tim Kelly's offense to begin with. Will Levis is a way better fit, and even Malik Willis might be a better fit in this offense because Ryan Tannehill is a much better fit for that Shanahan wide zone West Coast kind of offense. We only ran play action like 3 or 4 times today. We really didn't do it much. We came out in the empty set a lot, so there was no question about what we were going to do. It was throw the football, and that's not necessarily Tannehill's game, and I get that, but still, the reads he made today and just how unsure he looked all game. I mean, the way these balls were coming out, he did not look like himself. Because if there's anything you can say about Tannehill, even the last 2 seasons where things haven't been as bright, he's at least been confident when he throws the football. You can see it. The ball comes out fast and on target when his receivers are open, and he looks confident when he had time to throw. But he had time to throw today for the most part. The pressure, I mean, the offensive line held up well enough against what's a really good defensive line in New Orleans. They weren't bad at all, and he didn't look right. And I hate it. I hate seeing it, and I hate saying it because, I mean, few people have been bigger Tannehill defenders than myself. But I mean, I just made a video on him yesterday talking about how we should expect improvement from him this year. And then he comes out and throws 3 interceptions, and then in general has like 7 or 8 turnover-worthy plays today. And that's, now I look like a fucking idiot because I just told you he's gonna be really good this year, and well, he stank, quite frankly. There's just no defending how he played today. And I don't know if we're going to see any better. I mean, I know Tannehill in week 1 hasn't historically been the best thing ever. Because, of course, there was a Cardinals game a couple of years ago where he came out and didn't look very good either. But, I mean, the way the ball was coming out, it just didn't look right. I don't know that we're going to see rampant improvement next week. Is he going to stop throwing ducks? Is he going to suddenly look super comfortable in this offense? Which, by the way, all we've heard this offseason is how Tannehill knows the offense almost as well as Tim Kelly does, which, that was a fucking lie. because he doesn't look comfortable running it at all. And that it's just insane to me how all we've heard the last month and a half is how comfortable Ryan Tannehill is in this new offense and how quickly he's learned it and how much he's helping other people continue to learn it. And I mean, we didn't see any of that today. None of it. So was that all smoke and mirrors? I mean, what the fuck's going on? Um, Traylon Burks had a pretty big drop on a second down as well, which led to a third down stop again, and you hate to see that from Traylon. I mean, he that was the only drive he really got targeted. He had just caught the last two passes for 18 yards, and he was well past the sticks. It would have been a first down, and it was a pretty on-target throw. It was the middle of his body, and he tried catching it with his body instead of his hands, and sure enough, he dropped it because your hands are for catching. Your body won't work as well as your hands will, but it's that's something you don't want to see from a guy who struggled with these kind of drops last year. You don't want to see that in year two. That's the kind of thing where if nothing else, you at least want to see that aspect of his game go away. You want to see him be more sure-handed in this kind of situation. So I still think Traylon will have a good year, but that's really disappointing because if there was that was his biggest issue last year was these concentration drops where he just didn't try catching it the right way, and sure enough, it's an incomplete pass because he just can't bring it in. And we had one of those on a very important play in this game, and it sucks. But DeAndre Hopkins looked pretty good for the most part, and even that Traylon had some nice plays today. NWI had some nice plays today. Henry and Spears both look fantastic. I really think the offense should run through Henry and Spears. Chig got open a lot, had 0 catches for 0 yards. One because Tannehill didn't see him, another one because Tannehill didn't hit him. Had he seen him and hit him accurately both times, Chig would have had like 75 yards and a touchdown today. So, I mean, the tape definitely speaks more than the stats do. Chig didn't have a bad game by any means, but he was another one who's just kind of an outlier in this system. Chig's not a perfect fit in Tim Kelly's system either, which, okay, Tim Kelly I thought called a pretty good game, but I am a bit concerned that our personnel really doesn't match the kind of offense that he wants to run. And that's probably my biggest hang-up right now is even if Tannehill was playing well, there are definitely some fishes out of water here because this isn't because Burks and Chig are the type of weapons who, you get them the ball quick and get them into open space. That's not Tim Kelly's offense. Tim Kelly's offense is much more traditional, drop back passing game, which is not really where either of these players, Chig or Traylon, made their money in college. And of course, you hope both of them can give you that in the NFL. You hope both of them can develop into, scheme-proof players who can play well within a Tim Kelly system or, a Kyle Shanahan kind of system. But it didn't look great today in general. And you hate to see it. I mean, Nick Folk was awesome. It is nice knowing that we have a kicker that can hit from 50 yards because Randy Bullock, anytime it was 45 or higher, that's it. It's over. He's not hitting it. You knew he wasn't hitting it. But Nick Folk, I mean, first kick of the game, 50-yard field goal, and he was 5 of 5 today. Nick Folk was awesome. You can't complain at all about Nick Folk. That's easily the team MVP on offense. And in general, the defense had a nice day, and the offensive line played relatively well. The running backs played well. I think this is the best running back room we've had in the last decade, really since Thunder and Lightning were on the team. And you'd hate to see them get underutilized like they did in the second half today, but that's exactly what happened. And I just hope in the future, if Tannehill starts to struggle like this again, that we begin to lean on Henry and Spears more because they both played very well today. And you're not going to win football games sticking with something that isn't working. You're not going to win games if Tannehill's playing like boiled ass and you just keep throwing the ball. When Derrick Henry's averaging 5 yards a carry and Spears is getting open in the passing game and looking really good as a runner, give them the ball. Figure something out. Even if it's not a run play, give them something short in the passing game. But it's it wasn't working, and I don't know what the issue was. I don't know why you don't just keep running it with Henry, or because they started giving Henry those quick passes at late in the first half, and he had two catches for like 60 yards. And then they just didn't do that in the second half, and I don't know why. I don't know why you go away from something that works if that's what's getting your offense moving down the field. But all in all, I mean, there is some reason to be optimistic. I mean, Ryan Tannehill threw three picks. We were on the road, and the refs had Saints money line, and we still only lost by 1 point. There are there's plenty of room to grow on offense. Defense looks really good. The run defense, which I don't think anybody thought the run defense was going to be bad, but boy did it look good today. Um, I think we're going to be okay if we get league average quarterback play. If Tannehill figures it out, we'll be alright. I don't think this is all doom and gloom. I don't think we need to press the panic button. It's week one. There's no need to draw any definitive conclusions uh, as far as Tannehill goes as of today, but it didn't look great, and I'm not sure that we're going to get major improvement from him just based on the way the ball looked like when it was coming out. He didn't look sure at all. His arm didn't look right. His deep ball accuracy over the last few years. I mean, this is a historic fall off because this is a guy who was hitting every deep pass in 2019 and 2020. And the last two seasons and in this game, just overthrew him, which is what he's been doing. He overthrows deep balls now, and that's what it's been. And I just really hope we get better quarterback play later on. I think with league average quarterback play, this team is winning 10 plus games. But we'll see. We'll see what we get. We got three of them. One of them's got to be good. If Tannehill still stinks, I mean, one of either Willis or Levis. Somebody's got to play better. So I think that about sums up my thoughts on this game. Mike Vrabel didn't coach a bad game. He wasn't amazing, but Bowen coached a good game. I thought Tim Kelly wasn't amazing, but he certainly better than most Todd Downing games. And I don't think coaching here was the problem. The biggest issue, no question about it, was Ryan Tannehill. So we need to see more from Tannehill this season, or we need to see Levis or Willis get in there. And I think that's about it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. I'll see you later.